Staying with that story, Peter Humphreys is an analyst on international affairs and intelligence. He joins me now from Washington, D.C. Good to speak to you. So what impact are sanctions likely to have if implemented?
Sanctions serve to sort of kick the football down the highway. They don't necessarily solve the problem. They help the problem be moderated a bit. They can be bypassed by clever smugglers, and so their effectiveness is debatable. But you have to go through sanctions to say, I did everything possible, everything that I could possibly do to prevent bad behavior. It's a rite of passage. You have to go through sanctions. And in this case, as many sanctions as we can possibly think of, participated in by as many countries as we can persuade.
And do you think military action is necessary here?
I think military action is not necessary. I think ultimately a massive series of covert actions might help to change the situation in the north. I could see a situation in which China becomes so frustrated it arranges a putsch, coup d'etat, a change in government that is friendly to Beijing. So there's another option. I think military action is so unlikely because it would need the approval of the South Koreans. And South Korea will not approve military action because the next day they are rained on by thousands of artillery shells, some of which may contain biological or chemical weapons. So to the largest extent, South Korea has a veto over this, and they will exercise that veto. The only but is if by some miracle Kim Jong-un manages to land one of his missiles onto an aircraft carrier or onto a US base in Japan. Then maybe South Korean approval wouldn't be necessary for military action.
Peter, we haven't really heard from North Korea in the last few days. Any ideas why?
I imagine they're ginning up their preparations. They certainly know the problem that they're facing, and they're not necessarily a well-equipped army. So I can see a situation in which they're quietly doing everything conceivable within their limited means to prepare for a revenge attack and to hide assets, to move assets out of places where they might be struck. Just in case we happen to know where those nuclear weapons are, just in case we happen to know where the ammunition dumps are, they may be engaged in a quiet nighttime movement of assets. So I'm sure they're pretty busy guys right now.
And just a quick one, though. Is Trump using this to distract from his domestic policy failures and U-turns?
Oh, I don't think so. He's more of a domestic president than a foreign policy president. And so this is consuming a disproportionate amount of his time currently. But to say that he could ignore it in favor of some sort of domestic constituency is just not realistic. These are the cards that he's been dealt. He is dealing with them in a seemingly reasonable manner, but not at the expense of some catastrophe in the domestic agenda. That's not a fair criticism.
That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us here on TRT World. Peter Humphreys, an analyst on international affairs and intelligence.